All right, let's talk about something we've all felt. And honestly, it can be incredibly frustrating. It's that moment when you need your brain the most and it just checks out. We're always told to think on our feet, that pressure makes diamonds. But what if that's just not how our biology works? What if, under serious stress, our brain has a built-in off switch? And what if the real secret to peak performance isn't about pushing harder, but about understanding this biological circuit breaker?
This one idea completely flips the script on how we think about stress. Think about what that really means. That moment you perceive as failure, blanking out, freezing up, it's actually an act of intentional self-preservation. It suggests the system is working perfectly, even when it feels like it's completely falling apart. This isn't some bug in your programming, it's a feature, and it's been designed over millennia of evolution.
I mean, picture this. A huge presentation, a really difficult conversation, or heck, even just trying to get out the door when you're late. The more you desperately need that one piece of information, the further away it seems to drift, right? It leaves you feeling helpless, maybe even a little incompetent. But listen, this is not a personal failing. It is a universal human response. And today, we are going to pull back the curtain on the neuroscience behind it.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to unpack what it means for your brain's CEO to get fired. Then we'll explore the shutdown itself, break down the biological loop that actually causes it, and discover the ancient evolutionary logic behind the whole thing. And most importantly, we'll learn how to speak the language of safety to get back in control, before wrapping up with a whole new philosophy for high performance.
Okay, so let's really dive into this powerful reframe. That moment your mind goes completely blank. It is not a sign of weakness. It's not proof you're unprepared. It is a deliberate, protective strategy your brain uses when it senses the whole system is about to hit a critical overload.
The best way to think about it is like a circuit breaker in your house. When there's a power surge, it flips a switch to prevent an electrical fire. Your brain does the exact same thing to prevent a metabolic fire from extreme stress. Now, the cost of this protection is a temporary loss of your higher thinking. Your brain has basically decided, hey, it's better to shut down complex thought for a minute than to risk frying the entire system. It's a trade-off, and your biology has already made that choice for you.
So what is actually happening in these moments? Well, scientists call it an executive shutdown, or you could think of it as a kind of neurocognitive paralysis. This is when your brain literally hits its metabolic red line. It's that super frustrating state where you feel mentally paralyzed, unable to do even simple things that you could normally do in your sleep.
This is the perfect, everyday example of an executive shutdown. You're looking for your keys, the stress of being late is just building and building, and your brain is screaming, "Threat!" In that moment, your ability to use logic and observation just plummets. Your brain isn't focused on finding the keys, it's way too busy managing the overwhelming feeling of stress. So no, you're not stupid. Your cognitive resources have just been rerouted to deal with what it thinks is a crisis.
Now, to really get what's happening, you have to meet the two main characters in this internal drama. On the left, we've got the thinker, your prefrontal cortex, or PFC. This is your brain's CEO. It handles all the big stuff: logic, planning, problem solving, emotional regulation. It's incredibly powerful, but man, it has super high fuel consumption. It's a total gas guzzler. And on the right, we have the amygdala, your brain's security guard. This is an ancient, fast, reflexive system. It's designed for one job and one job only: detect threats and hit the alarm. It doesn't do nuance, it's all or nothing.
And this brings us to the core mechanism of the whole process: functional decoupling. When your security guard, the amygdala, senses that the total stress on your system is getting dangerously high, it yanks the emergency brake. It floods your system with a chemical surge of stress hormones like cortisol and norepinephrine. These chemicals act like a firewall, and they effectively sever the connection. They cut the power to your expensive, fuel-hungry CEO, the prefrontal cortex.
So what does that feel like? The immediate result is a state called cognitive tunneling. With the CEO offline, you lose all sense of perspective. You can't see the big picture anymore. You can't prioritize what's important. Instead, you might fixate on some tiny irrelevant detail, like the font in an email while a massive deadline is looming. This isn't you procrastinating, it's your brain literally losing the capacity for strategic thought. You're now fully engaged in surviving the feeling of being overwhelmed, which leaves zero energy left to solve the actual problem.
And here's the really important thing to understand. This shutdown isn't random. It's a predictable 5-stage loop. And once you understand these stages, you get the power to recognize where you are in the process and eventually how to step in and do something about it.
Let's just walk through this loop step by step. It all starts with a threshold breach. That's when the stress just becomes too much for your PFC's energy budget.
This triggers the chemical surge, where the alarm system goes off, flooding you with those stress hormones. That leads directly to PFC inhibition. This is the exact moment your mind goes blank. The CEO gets fired, and your working memory, think of it like your brain's RAM, gets wiped clean to save energy. With the CEO gone, we hit amygdala dominance. The security guard is in charge now, and your only options are the primal ones: fight, flight, or freeze. And finally, even after the stress is over, there's the recovery lag. That cortisol sticks around in your system like smoke after a fire, creating that familiar feeling of brain fog and, get this, making you even more likely to trigger the whole loop all over again.
So, you might be thinking, why on earth would our brains be designed this way? It seems completely backward. Why would our most advanced cognitive tool just abandon us in a crisis? Well, the answer isn't in the modern world, it's in our ancient past. It's all about survival.
And this isn't just a fun theory. It's a well-established psychological principle called the 𝐀𝐟𝐟𝐢𝐥𝐢𝐚 law. Picture a graph that looks like an upside-down U. As stress goes up, your performance gets better and better. You're focused, you're alert, you're on your game. That's good stress. But there's a peak. And if the stress keeps climbing past that point, your performance doesn't just level off, it completely falls off a cliff. Your brain intentionally causes this collapse to save resources for a much more primitive reflexive response.
It all comes down to this stark choice your brain makes in a fraction of a second. To your ancient hardware, a looming deadline can feel exactly the same as a lurking lion. And when you're faced with a lion, being brilliant, using that slow, deliberate, and really energy-expensive PFC gets you eaten. Your brain would much rather you be dumb and alive. It shuts down the complex thinker and activates the fast, reflexive, and metabolically cheap survival instincts. It will sacrifice your subjective feeling of competence for objective survival. Every single time.
Okay, so we get the what and the why. Now for the most important part. What do we actually do about it? How do we get our CEO back online when we need him? The key is to stop trying to fight our own biology and start learning to communicate with it in a language it actually understands.
Here's the golden rule. You have to remember this. You cannot reason your way out of an amygdala hijack. Trying to tell yourself to just calm down or think logically is like shouting complex instructions in a foreign language at your security guard during a fire drill. It just adds more noise, more stress. Instead, you have to use your body to signal to your brain that the threat has passed. These are what we call somatic safety signals.
Here are 3 powerful, science-backed tools you can use right in the moment. First up, the long exhale. When you're stressed, you start taking short, shallow breaths, which signals danger. By deliberately making your exhale longer than your inhale, you manually activate something called the vagus nerve, which is the main brake on your body's stress response. It tells your heart to slow down, it lowers cortisol, and it sends a powerful message to your amygdala: we're safe. It is the fastest, most direct way to say the danger is past. Second, label the biostate. Shift from being a victim of the feeling to an observer of it. Just saying to yourself, okay, I'm not failing, I'm experiencing a cortisol surge, is an act of logical observation. You're shifting from being in the chaos to watching it, and that's the PFC's job. That tiny act starts to bring your CEO back into the room. And third, the rule of 3 tinies. When you're overwhelmed, don't try to solve the big problem. That's way too expensive for your brain. Instead, get back your sense of control by listing 3 tiny, manageable actions. Drink a glass of water, stand up and stretch, write 1 single word. These small wins build momentum, they break the paralysis, and they prove to your brain that you're not helpless, which helps dial down the alarm.
And all of this brings us to a really fundamental shift in how we need to think about pressure, stress, and performance. We've been taught to just push through, to grind harder, to embrace the pressure. But the neuroscience tells a completely different story.
So the next time you feel your mind starting to go blank, instead of criticizing yourself for being weak or unprepared, try to see it for what it actually is. It is a biological shield. It's your nervous system's way of protecting you from a total burnout. It's not a flaw you need to conquer, it's a signal you need to listen to. The question isn't, how can I force my brain to work harder? The better question is, what safety is my brain asking for right now?
And this really is the ultimate takeaway. True, sustainable high performance doesn't come from relentless pressure. It comes from creating the psychological and physiological safety that allows our best, highest-level thinking to show up and thrive. By understanding our own biology, we can stop fighting against it and start working with it, turning those moments of shutdown into opportunities for a smarter, more compassionate response. The path to a better brain isn't through more force, it's through more peace.